Hey folks, Steve here with another Case Yellow 1940 video for you today. We're in the home stretch now. We're on turn 8 in this video. We may get through at least turn 8, I would hope. We may get to do turn 9, and if we're moving fast enough, I may even do turn 10, but we'll see where we're at in terms of the length of time it takes to record all of this. At this point, it's probably safe for me to pull the camera back a little bit since the north part of the map is pretty much, all that up here is pretty much done. It's all going to be about what's going on down in the south. So I may do some more camera adjustments to make this a little bit easier for you guys. Something I realize is, I do all these videos and you're kind of seeing everything at this, slanted angle of a lot of the map, and I zoom in on certain points. It's probably really hard for you guys to appreciate the individual actions down at a lower level. So I may try to adjust the camera for that over these next couple of turns some of the time, just so that's a little bit easier to see. I realize these playthrough videos are really good if you just want to kind of see a game play out, but I'm not teaching mechanics. I'm not, explaining how everything works in super big detail, because that would just slow things down. But when we get to the actual review video, this is my normal style. The middle section of my review video is usually dedicated to a more in-depth explanation of mechanics and the way things work. So if you've been watching this and you've been missing out on some of that, I will cover that in the review, to a point, right? I mean, I don't want to spend the whole video doing a how to play this game, but it is a, hey, here's how the mechanics work so you can understand it if you're looking to buy the game. And usually I find that there are just people that just watch the review. They don't watch these series. I don't expect people to. But I know there's a few diehard people out there that will watch everything, introduction to every turn video, to the postmortem, to the review, all of that. For those who do that, thank you. I appreciate you sticking with me through all this stuff. So we're certainly in the final stages of the game, the last 3 turns. And the game certainly right now has a very different feel than just, hey, it's the late part of the game. It's really, how is Germany going to win? Because I think at this point, it's almost certain that Germany will win. It's just a question of how, and maybe the Allies can eke something out such that the Germans don't win. And I think what's interesting, and why I'm not just calling the game because I expect the Germans to win, is that the game situation, this particular one at least, unveils some really smart game design on Ted Racer's part. Now, this is, Ted's a good game designer. He is. Maybe not every game is amazing. Maybe not every game works for everybody, but he definitely can design excellent games. And some of that design, the good design that comes out, isn't necessarily always on, out in the open and easy to notice, and it's just right there on the tin. You start to see the game click together a little bit, and suddenly it clicks. Why is the rule like this? It might seem innocuous, and then you start to see, this is going to drive behavior really for the rest of the game. So here's what I mean. I think it's going to be worth talking about here. The scenario 1 victory conditions require that the Germans have twice the number of victory points as the Allies. It's a simple thing, right? That's straightforward. And it basically means that every victory point that the Allies get is now 2 more that the Germans will have to get. And obviously, at some juncture, you just have to hope that the Germans are going to spring forward and get a lot of victory points to get them anywhere near what they're going to be required to win the game. Now, in this particular scenario, and I can't speak to the other scenarios as well because we haven't played those yet, and I might play one or both of them at some point, maybe sooner than I even think. But in this scenario, where those victory points come from matter a whole lot. And in fact, where you're at the end of turn 8 or the beginning of turn 8, like we're at, and what you decide to do in those last few turns of the game are going to be really predicated on how the other parts of the game went. And you say, Steve, that's how every war game works. What are you talking about? Well, here it is very, very, very specific. So the Germans achieved a turn 1 surrender of the Dutch. That was important. That gave us some good victory points early that allowed the Germans to basically be in line with the accrual of victory points the Allies get just existing with the tracing of the channel ports to the southern part of the map. So that was okay. Then the next big sort of, ball tip, use maybe a basketball reference or something, comes with Operation Dynamo. So that is the first real important flashpoint of the game, the shatter point upon which all actions will reflect off of, is, do the Allies do pretty darn good at Operation Dynamo or not? If they do, that is going to increase the pressure for the Germans to get every single victory point they can possibly get. And yes, could mean that you call the game early if the Allies just do incredibly, incredibly well. And mathematically, the Germans can't resolve it, right? If the Germans do an okay job of slowing the Allies down, and the Allies, let's say, have a medium amount of evacuations, not the maximum, not the minimum. They get a decent bit for a few turns, and then the port closes or something. How many victory points the Allies have will really dictate how the Germans are going to have to conduct themselves for the rest of the game. And in our case, the Germans had a particularly strong showing of shutting down the evacuation port, eliminating units, getting things structured so that they can begin to be pushing down south. Here, now and when the Panzers come back, that they're already sitting pretty happy victory point wise. So right now, the Allies have 12, the Germans have 15. So that means that the Germans need to get 9 victory points to win. Now, 9's not very many, and so what's interesting is when you really try to evaluate where these victory points are going to come from, it's important to look at these charts. So let me just look at this for a second. Now, let's assume that the Allies just can't eliminate any Panzer divisions, right? Maybe unlikely at this point. And let's say the Allies aren't going to capture any German towns. Fair enough. And the rest of these things just really will not matter, of course, the rest of the game. What does matter is if the Allied player holds any hex of Paris with a line of communication to any hex on either the west or south map edges of the game, they get 5 victory points. So if the Allies can stop the Germans here-ish, right here, and they can hold on to one hex, maybe it's the southwest hex here behind the river and facing the map edges. Let's say they hold on to that. The Allies will get 5 victory points. Doesn't matter what else the Germans do. They could get 5 victory points. Now, that would mean that the Allies would then jump up to 17 victory points, which would mean that to win the game, the Germans would need to have 34, and in fact, actually 35, because the scenario rules state that you have to have more than twice the number of Allied victory points. So it's not twice, it's more than twice. So let's say the Allies somehow, by fighting tooth and nail, defend Paris. Well, then they get 5 victory points. So they're at 17. You double that, that's 34. And then the Germans actually would then need to get 35. So from 15 to 35, they need to pick up 20 more victory points. I can tell you that even if they get every yellow printed unit off the map somehow, that might not be enough. If I actually go and try to do the full count, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If we count these infantry regiments, which I think you do, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and I think that's it. So if they got 18 victory points to the 15 that they have, right, that would be 33. That's less than 35, right? Germans would lose. If they ignored Paris, let the Allies keep Paris, let's say, and they just tried to rush everything off the map, the on-map motorized infantry and all the Panzer units that are going to come back, we successfully get them off the map by just breaking through and racing off the map screen. They're not going to have enough to win. Now, they're likely, the Germans rather, are going to take Amiens. That is worth a victory point. So they could really get 19 more victory points, which would bring them up to 34. Um, but that's not enough. They need more than twice. So already the shape of the game, even if we cleaned up and eliminated the allies here, what this forces us to do is we can't just ignore Paris and get off map. We have to take Paris. We actually have to do it. We have to do it. And if we keep the now in this particular configuration, because we limited the Allied evacuation, if the Allies had even gotten a few more steps off the map, that would have made it even worse for the Germans. As it stands, this controls the German behavior by saying they have to take Paris, but assuming that they do, that will be enough to win. So if we look at the German bit here, they're going to get one for Amiens when they take it. They're almost assuredly going to take it. And then as long as they capture Paris at all, they'll get 8 victory points. So if they capture Paris at all, whether in this case it doesn't matter if Paris is declared an open city or not, that will be enough to win because they're going to get 8 no matter what, 8 or 16, but 8 plus the one for Amiens, that would be 9. 9 to their 15 is 34. They would need one more victory point, and that could come from one unit getting off map. That could be taking some of the Maginot line. I mean, the Germans have a couple more places where they could get 10 victory points, right? If they need 10 right now, that would be enough to get to 25. If the Allies don't get any more victory points. And again, Paris is going to be the only place they're going to reasonably get victory points at this point. Germans could also get some points for cutting off the Maginot. So right now, basically, as long as the Germans can focus on Paris and take it, they will win. This will also mean, given that, the Allies are probably less likely to declare Paris an open city, because if they declared an open city, they basically have to be way out away from Paris itself, which is going to be easier pickings for the Germans to snake out around and take the city hexes or do whatever they want, right? I don't trust that declaring it an open city is going to do the Allies any good here. If they did, right, that almost assuredly is going to give the Germans 8 victory points plus the 1 or 2 extra that they would need to win. So instead, the Allies are probably going to have to bet the farm on slowing the Germans down elsewhere and basically holding Paris tooth and nail as much as humanly possible, basically. Now, they can't just all cluster in Paris because the Germans could encircle it, and that would cut them out of supply and deprive them of 5 victory points. But basically, this is going to be the Allies' decision to say, no, we're not going to declare Paris an open city. They've lost the Allied army. So there's no point in just being like, well, if they lose Paris, that's it, right? They don't have an army. They don't have a capital, as opposed to, some of the army could get away, or some of the units could be made for Free France or whatever. Like, this is just the dire game situation, to us, ahistorical at this point, because of how badly Operation Dynamo went. So it's just interesting that, when you look at how the victory points are applied here, why the Allies get 5 if they hold it, why it's 16, why it's 8 for the Germans to capture it before being declared an open city or after being declared an open city, is to meter the player action around, what really has occurred. How does that victory point tally look like? And that still feeds into the political type of decision that would have been made maybe at the time, right? So it's like, hey, you lost your army, you better not lose Paris, right? Don't let Paris fall for nothing. So we're going to have to hold. And now I doubt that the Allies are going to be able to hold once the Panzers come back onto the board. But there's only a couple. There's only going to be those couple of turns for anything to happen. And again, due to the math of it, if the Germans think they can get away with just taking units off the map and just running away from Paris, that won't be enough mathematically to win. What we could see happen is the Germans take Paris and they run a bunch of stuff off the map and get huge amounts of victory points. That could certainly happen. and we'll see whether or not it will here shortly. But I really wanted to touch upon that because I think it's a very interesting way that the game can represent the game situation, the decision making, even after Dynamo is over. What's the lay of the land? What's the best route to victory? Where the Allies still have a chance. They have a way that they could win, and that is to fight tooth and nail and fight as intelligently as they can on the defense to keep the Germans bottled up, trying to take Paris, but delaying them as much as possible. With that, we'll run through the beginning parts of the turn here. I don't think there's a whole lot that really needs covered in a huge amount of detail before we start talking the action phase. So there's no Dynamo Royal Air Force segment. Air availability is already taken care of. At this point, there really is no... I don't think there's much use for an Allied interdiction. There's maybe a reason to try right here, but I don't think that that is going to be enough to heavily influence things, and we'd probably rather have that air unit to change the odd shifts somewhere important. Because the Germans acting down here is not as important as the Germans acting down here. So we're not going to do an Allied crossing interdiction attempt. And in terms of Stuka dive bombing, I'm not sure there's real, like, if we're lucky, we maybe, eliminate this guy. I think maybe we try to hit these guys, if anything. But I think anyone that we would maybe want to attack. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see any like good obvious places to do dive bombing where it would be super beneficial. Especially because again we don't have the Panzers back, so the only units that can really try to slip past French Zocs would be our motorized, and these guys are probably going to get eliminated in the combat round. So maybe it makes sense to, well, and this guy doesn't project a Zoc by himself, so that's not really a big deal. Yeah, I think we're going to hold all of our Stuka back for combat odd shifts because we want as many of these German combats to go without a hitch as possible so that we are in, again, as good of a position as possible when the Panzers come back to crush whatever's left. So, yeah, nothing from the air phase, the supply phase. I actually think these guys are out of supply. These guys are out of supply. And oh boy, I think these guys are out of supply with the Zocs being projected the way that they're being projected. So that is a problem for the French, just straight up. Everyone else, I believe, is fine for supply. I do need to flip these attack supply units up. That's okay. And then we have the action phase. So we've already got the cup loaded up. And the Germans have the first chit. And for the first time, I think all game where the Germans have had the choice, I'm going to have them do a combat chit. Mostly because I'm not as worried about where the French are going to move up to. What I want to make sure I do is I clear some of the spaces behind these river lines so that we have an opportunity to progress forward. If the Germans get the next chit, then we'll capitalize on the gaps made and the guys defeated. If the Allies get to go, then so be it. But I don't think there's much that the Allies are going to be able to do to change the overall situation, other than to get these units probably in better situation to block the Germans. So as we look to do that, I'm just going to adjust the camera a little bit and have us a little bit better zoomed in and set up to talk about these actions as they go. And we'll put a break here. Okay, so this does seem as good a time as any to show some of the combat stuff and the calculation of these things. So first of all, I think what we'll do is we'll start here. And so they're out of supply, but they have a better defense marker. So those kind of negate each other in terms of shifts. It is because I think we're just going to do these hexes attacking to here. It is 18 to 3, so that's 6 to 1 to start with. We do have the city defensive terrain itself, and then which is one shift, and then we have everyone is attacking over a minor river, which is 2 shifts. So functionally, we're rolling on the 4 to 1 column, and let's see if there's anything else. Now, do I want to use air here? And will the Allies use air here? Well, I think the ally has to decide first, and we'll go ahead and have the Germans use an air asset. And then whether or not the Allies choose to do so. So now it's a 5 to 1, which is almost certainly going to mean that this guy is nuked. And using the Allied air unit to make it 4 to 1 won't make much of a difference. We're just making sure that we're guaranteeing a clean attack, which is what we want here, I think. So we'll roll it on the 5 to 1. Yeah, eliminated. So better defense marker is gone. The unit is gone. The supply marker can be set aside. The refugee marker will be removed as this guy, and I guess we'll have the division as well advance after combat. So that is capturing that city, which will mean a victory point at the end of the turn when we get there. So pretty good setup there, I think. Then we have this here, which is 4 strength that is out of supply, but they're in clear terrain, so the terrain's not going to help them. And we could have, 6 and, say, 9. We could add somebody from over here. It would be 2 to 1 with a add a supply. Let's see if we just attack with these guys, right? So that's, oh no, I'm sorry, this is a 5 strength hex. Oh, so we are going to have to throw something in there. That makes this a whole lot more difficult. So they have 5, 7. Ooh, yeah, that's ugly. So it would be, yikes. Yeah, maybe I didn't do this the best way possible. So 9 to 5 rounds down to 1 to 1. They're out of supply, which becomes 2 to 1. And then we could do 2 air assets. And this would probably be one where the Allies use their air unit. So the Germans would get just the 1 more shift. So I think it goes to 3 to 1 at this point. But the Germans roll a 6. So let's see, that is a DE. So let's see what we have under here. This guy is out of supply. So the okay, so this guy is going to be eliminated. This corps is going to take a step loss. And then he has to retreat, and he can't because of the Zoc. So he is eliminated. Defense marker is gone. Out of supply marker is irrelevant, and we can advance after combat. And we'll go ahead and do that like so. Now what we could do, if we wanted, is we have motorized units that could advance 2 hexes. So we could do that. I think we'll go ahead and do that. Then we have here, which could be 5, 9, so 3 to 1. Goes down to 2 to 1 because of the better defense markers. I think we do use some more of our air to make it a 3-to-1 attack. It's a little dicey there, but I think I like it, and we'll give it a shot. And we get a DR result. So they must retreat 2 hexes. So we're going to set this aside. It is not lost. And you retreat 2 hexes. Go 1, 2, and that's sufficient. We'll have these guys. Make sure. Let's see. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, they're fine. Had to double check the attack supply, but they were good. So so that was it for those. And then we have, I think we have an attack down here where there's this unit that is in a better defense. He's a 3. He's a core. He's out of supply, and he's being attacked. Now these guys are out of attack supply. So it would be 10, 12. 12 to 3 is 4-to-1, but they lose a shift. The out of supply negates the better defense, but the attack supply gives a shift to the left. So this would be 3-to-1. And do I want to use air for this? No, I think we're okay. So 3-to-1. We got a 4. This is a retreat 2 hexes result, but this guy cannot retreat into Zox, and so he's going to be eliminated, I believe. So another one bites the dust. And there, have him advance is probably the better option. There's a little bit of the supply concern right here. That could be a problem, but I think for now it's fine. The Germans will be able to rectify that one way or another. Now the other question is, are there any other attacks that we want to do? And I think right now there's not as much that I feel would be very successful. Given the present circumstances. We want to avoid taking losses. We don't want to have a situation where the Germans can be slowed down too much. I mean, I could maybe attack here at bad odds, but I think what the Germans would rather do is have their next chit be movement, sort of, advance and set up some better attacks, and then attack again, use the last of our air on one of those attacks, and be pretty darn close to Paris. So I think that's it, and we'll go to the cup. Oh, and I don't think. Well, okay. I should check. Do I want to do anything over here? Namely, do I want to try to attack here or maybe here? I think 12 to 8. Yeah, 15. Yeah, no, we need to wait a little bit for something to happen over here, I think. And even then, it's really dicey and it's probably not going to happen. So we'll see. Okay. So we'll go to the cup. And the next chit is indeed a German chit. So Germans will get to move. This does mean that the Allies will get to do something before the German combat after this move, but I think this is still pretty good for the Germans. Just better in general. So I'll do the movement off camera and we'll come back and see what's up. Okay, here we are after the German move. You can see, we have to be careful because if we leave this open, I must have an issue with coasts. These French units aren't that scary, but they do have 4 and 5 movement units that could go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and maybe start creating some supply and Zoc problems, and maybe try to bypass getting to Abbeville and taking a victory point away from the Germans, which the Germans cannot afford to lose at this point. So I did not have these guys do a combined movement attack here. I need to keep something holding that position, at least for the moment. The only nice thing, I guess, that the Germans can look forward to is like the Allies aren't going to get much in the way of reinforcements, right? So it is very much a question of when and how are they going to get units situated around Paris, so much as just appearing over here and wreaking havoc over here, I should say, and wreaking havoc. Sorry, hand gets in the way. I know. Okay, so we're gonna go to the cup and we're gonna pull and we're gonna see what we get, and we get Allied movement. So, yeah, that could have been maybe a little bit better, but I don't know what I'm saying. I think movement is probably the best thing they could have hoped for right now. Now we do have rail movement of 2 corps. My problem is I don't know where I can take a unit off without basically giving without basically giving the Germans free shots on big chunks of the map. So I'm going to have to very selectively pick a couple of places and do that. And let's see, he can't really move. We're sort of giving up over here. I don't know how else to deal with this. 4, 1, 2. Yeah, some of these spots are just not great, and there's just not a whole lot. Just not much that we can do. Oh, there's a rail limitation. Gosh, my bad. Where, yeah, they need to be 5 hexes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There, I guess. Wait, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can go here. That's tricky. Maybe I need to push this guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, you can't move them if they're, yeah. Oh, okay. And yeah, I probably couldn't even have moved those guys. Well, okay. I'm going to cheat a little bit and say, well, this guy, he was not on the front line, but he wasn't 5. He might not have been 5 hexes away, but he could have gotten there at any point. So I'm fine with him going. And technically, he probably shouldn't have been able to rail move. But you know what? I'm going to let the Allies have a little bit of a gift here, a boon, to make the game a little more interesting. Okay, so there I said it, I'm cheating for the Allies. I'm letting them rail a unit they probably should not have been able to rail. But I've had enough actions over the last several turns. I could have arranged for him to have railed over here, so I'm not that worried about it. The rule is your starting hex, every intervening hex, and the end hex has to be 5 hexes away. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 5 hexes away from uh, a German unit. So you can see that rail is going to stop being useful here very, very soon. Okay, I think that's as much movement over there that we can afford now for the actual units. I think if he moves, I have to take this off for now. Let's see what else. Definitely want to have these guys go. Just kind of trying to make something happen here where we can be in an okay defensive position. This is going to be a problem, and I'm going to have to, like, I either have to move out ahead or not. I don't know. Oops. All right, so we're going to go back to the cup. Movement for the Allies is complete. Though I should say, you should see over here on the Maginot Line, we have emptied some places, and there are some spots that the Germans can think about trying to attack, but they are going to have to do some shuffling that they may not have a whole lot of time for. So we're going to go to the cup, and we pull Allied combat. To be quite honest, I do not think that there is much combat to be had here. Nothing really screams to me as worthwhile, unfortunately, guys. So I think that's just a wasted shit. There's just not much. Not much. I will say I forgot to move this guy before, so we'll just do that. And that should be good enough. Oops, I'm sorry, you guys didn't even see that. My apologies. Attack supply unit moved up a little bit. I forgot to do that. I'll allow myself to make that change since I'm giving some help to the Allies. Okay, last chit is German. I think very generally, combat is going to be the pick of the day. I do think we're going to have a couple of decent places for some combats. So let's take a look. So here is an obvious place. Now, these motorized units, let's see. It's going to end up being 4, 10, 13. Oh yeah, on the 5-1, which is pretty nasty. They only rolled a 2, so DL1. Take a step loss. This is a single step unit. These guys advance after combat. Or do we want them to advance after combat? Because this is one of those supply situations that could get funky. But I think we're okay. Here, it's going to be 3, 6, 12, 14, 21 to 5. So that's 4-1, reduced down to 3-1. We still have an air, so I think we'll go ahead and use it and make it 4-1. We only got a 3, which is a DR. Defender must retreat 2 hexes. He can't, so I believe he will be eliminated. Make sure I'm right about that. That's the way I can. If they cannot retreat because of Zox, then I believe they're eliminated in this game. Realize in some games it's a little different. Sometimes it's a step loss. Nope, yeah, he's eliminated. Okay. Too bad, so sad, French Corps. And markers eliminated. We have these guys advance. I think we advance like so. This guy's hurt. He can be left behind. Then a question of here. So it's 4 defending. The light woods is a shift, and the better defense marker, but it would be 12 to 4. 12 to 4. 3-1, but 2 shifts becomes 1-1. We could maybe make it 2-1 if we use our last air unit. It's 2-to-1 worth it. Can maybe get some BL1s. I don't necessarily like the sound of that. Yeah, I don't know. Because if we use our last air, we're not going to be able to use it for something else. And I want to use it to maybe crack the Maginot line somewhere. So, tricky. What to do here? Maybe we just give it a roll on the 1-to-1. Do you think? I feel like maybe that's worth a shot. Save our air for something else. Yeah, I rolled a 3, so it's a C. Contact, no effect. Change to DR if the attacker has a higher tactics rating. Our tactics rating, sorry, here it is 3, and it's 3 and a 2, so it's 3 to 3, so no effect here. Okay. Other attack that's going to be worth it is probably going to be, I'm thinking right here, and I just don't know. I think we've got a couple of terrain problems. So it's 8. We'd be taking with 6. 13, 16 to 8. With the artillery involved, which can support, so it would be, 7, 30, 50. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's my bad. 13 plus 3, okay, 16, so 8. We'd get a shift, so 2-to-1, we'd get a shift for the artillery to 3-to-1. If we used our last arrow, it'd be 4-to-1, but the hill makes it 3-to-1. And we only have a result on a DE. So we need to roll a 6 here. We'll go ahead and use the last air, designate it here. We could try to attack these other hexes, but the odds are just as bad, if not worse, just due to the way that the Zoc rule works here. So we need to roll a 6. And I knock over some units, and I roll a 3. So that is not going to be enough. It's an engaged result. If both sides have equal ratings, I think they do. Each side loses 1 step. Okay, well, we're going to put an engaged marker here, but I'm going to go double check. Do the French take a step loss in this hex? I'll have to look that up. Give me 1 second. So I find myself in a bit of a confusing situation. The rules seem to indicate that the intrinsic garrison is not affected, but it is not, to me, it is not clear what happens to a unit that is sharing a hex. And I'm trying to double check the errata to see if there's any clarity here. And I'm not seeing anything. So the question is, it says that the garrison is only removed by DE results, and everything else doesn't matter. But there is a unit here in addition, and the unit could, in theory, be affected by the result. And that's what I'm not sure about. So let's say that it does affect them, right? It would be a step loss, and it would be, a step loss. I think this is actually probably preferable to the French, because the way that this is going to work out is before we could get 2-to-1 odds. Now it's going to be 4, 11, 14. Oh, no, it's still going to be 2-to-1 odds. So I don't know. We'll let this be the case. I wish the rules were a little clearer on that. And that is really it for... oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I could have had extra hex advance, and I did. I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. Oh, actually, no, I'm not. That's not a good move. Sorry. Okay, I think that is it for the action round. Now, we'll do the end phase stuff, and maybe we'll call this one a video, guys. This one's just taking a little bit longer than expected to tackle. So disruption removal, well, there's no disruption. Bridgehead movement, we're not really worried about that at the moment, not terribly relevant. That's done, that's done. Refugee marker placement. At this point, I'm not sure that it really matters. But we do have a few refugee markers to place. Certainly could put one there. Maybe put one down here. And maybe we put one right here. And we just make it annoying for the allies to march around stuff. Paris Open City segment, I think. Oh, gosh. Well, I don't think the French are going to declare an open city, but they're in trouble. Victory determination segment. So we did take one place, so the Germans will get a victory point. I do not believe anything else applies. I think we talked through a lot of that. I don't think anything applies here. Let's do a quick sanity check. Nothing with the Maginot Line. No one's exited. Yeah, that was it. Okay. Armor attrition doesn't matter right now. Replacement segment. There are no more replacements at this point. Better defense markers. So we have 2 that we can place as the French that are valid. Well, I think we try here. Maybe we try here. I don't know. It's a little iffy. Maybe we ought to put it down here. Yeah, that's tricky. Panzer Refit. Okay, so now we have the Panzer Refit segment. So let's talk through this. Yeah, with this happening, this will make it that the video will need to end with this, just because there's a little bit more to it. So something we had not yet done is this Panzer Refit step. And so what we're going to need to do is we have 7 refit markers. We also have a special unit that will be joining the fray, which is simply this nice little brigade guy, but he'll be worth a victory point if we get him off the map. So we have 7 refit points. We can use those to replenish our panzers, and all of our panzer units have had at least 1 step loss. So of the 10 that we have, we're only going to get to restore 7 of those. I think wherever possible, we're going to try to pick ones that are the better units. So as I look at this, right, here's your which 3 are not going to get bumped up. So this guy goes from a 2 to a 4. This guy goes to a 2 to a 4. This guy goes to a 3 to a 5. Okay. This guy goes from a 2 to a 3. That's only a 1-point increase. I don't think he's going to get an upgrade or an improvement. He goes up by 2. He goes up by 2. He goes up by 2. By 2. By 2. By 2. So then by the process of elimination, the other 2 that won't get upgrades or improvements, refits, are going to be the 2 to 4s, so that the rest of these 7 will get bumped up. So 2 to 4s, 3 to 5s. Definitely like the 3 to 5s so that they're as potent as possible. The only thing we're missing out on, let's see, does anybody get a tactics rating boost? No. So that's certainly the better better way to do the refit. So we used up all 7 of our refit points, and that is done. So these units will now be returned to the map in any German-controlled hexes in supply, subject to stacking limits. They may be placed in Allied Zoks. So this is actually going to be pretty important, right? So first of all, we're going to want to stack. I think we want some big boy stacks. So we'll do 2 5s together. We'll do the 2 4s. We'll pair this guy up, and then we'll have these caboose guys to follow in their wake. Sorry, I keep adjusting. So we're going to set these guys up somewhere where they're going to be in supply. And as we look at the map, there's a lot of beautiful places to go. So I think we'll put, let's see, right here. I think we'll put some right here. These were controlled. They were moved through by the Germans, and they're in supply. I think we put somebody over here, and our sort of medium weight stack, I think we put, oh gosh, over here probably. Sorry, you might not be able to see that on camera, but there you go. So over here, and these caboose guys, maybe we'll also just put over here, and they'll just continue to be flanks. So we have a strong armored force here that's going to burst down and through. We've got some over here that will just help to ensure that we cut off the Maginot line and project some force. And I think in general, the Germans are going to crack these guys pretty darn good. Now, the other thing that we're going to do, and this is part of the special rules of the scenario, it's defined in that part of the rules, is we're going to make sure we look ahead at the next turn, because next turn is Vollrot, case red. So we'll go ahead and adjust the turn track thusly. So this said, I'll show you guys, so Panzer Refit, or Refit ends rather, I'm sorry. And on the back end is begin Vollrot. So go ahead and put that over there for starting on turn 9. So at the conclusion of Panzer Refit, we change over the marker. This means that the German will have all 4 action chits available. The Allied player will have 2 move and 1 combat chit available for this turn only, and Germany has the initiative, even though they were going to have the initiative anyway. The Germans will receive all 6 air assets, which is great for them. We'll just start setting that up now. It's an extra one, is always appreciated. We've not had any that have been eliminated, really, so that's going to be good. And then we're going to place the armor attrition chit for each on-map Panzer division in an opaque cup. That's going to mean all of them. Drawing procedure during the armor attrition phase is identical, and the Allied player will place 1 armor attrition chit for on-map armored unit into an opaque cup. The drawing procedure is modified. The Allied player draws each armor attrition phase until the first Allied step is lost. The Germans will still have to draw 2 or take 2 losses. The Allies will get some reinforcements, but it's not significant from here on out. Oh, and we do get this refit marker. I'm gonna put this guy with the beat up dudes because he's kind of free stacking, just to help that stack not be totally weakened, so they can afford a step loss and still kind of be okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, okay. So for the Germans, every Panzer marker is going to go into the cup. And then for the Allies, I don't know if they have much in the way of armor units on the map. They have the 2nd DCR, so that's 1, and then the 3rd DLM goes into the cup, and then everybody else is infantry. So that's really it. The Allies have 2. Oh no, I'm sorry. There's the group cavalry, but I'm not sure that guy actually has a chit. I don't think he does. Okay, so that's it, I believe. Oh, no, I'm sorry. There's a third DLC out there as well. But it looks like he does not have a chit. Which makes sense because he's kind of cavalry. So I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay. Well, that's it for turn 8, guys. We're going to look at turn 9, June 11th to the 14th. Case red, the start of case red for us. The Panzer units have come back onto the board. There are huge gaps in the Allied line at Paris that will likely be readily assaulted here very quickly, and maybe we're going to see the game end really on turn 9. But we'll play it through, and then we'll do a post-mortem, and then we'll decide what else we want to do. I am thinking about playing another scenario, maybe scenario 3, maybe scenario 2. We'll see. But so far, it's been an interesting game. Just definitely a German victory. I think we can say that, but interesting to see the way the mechanics all come together. So see you in the next one, guys. Take care. Keep gaming.